400 years ago, a man stood in an English courtroom and begged. He said, "Bring my accuser. Bring him here. Let him say it to my face. I want to see the person that wants me dead." The court said no, and they convicted him on a piece of paper, and then they cut his head off. Now, the other morning, a Utah judge ruled that the man accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk will not get to face his accuser, at least not yet. Same move, 400 years apart. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why that should terrify you and your children and your children's children, no matter what you believe about this case. Let's get right into the video.
What are they promising and why? Like, why are you getting this limited use immunity deal and what is it involving? That's it. Sit with that. Did your immunity deal shape your story? Did it? Did your immunity deal shape your story? Do you have a reason to say what the prosecutors want to hear? Are you in distress? Have they told you your X, Y, and Z? There's a lot of information that needs to be, unfolded. Let me see what this is here. Oh, this is an hour long. I was going to play this, but it's an hour long. So that's a pretty important thing, I would imagine, right? They want to ask about his motives to cooperate with investigators. What that needs to be, but Graf said no. Nope. Sorry. No person to show up here. Do you have a reason to say what the prosecutors want to hear? That is like super important. And that is the bombshell for me, that you can't deny that, right? I mean, you can, I guess, obviously you can, but I would say that I'm going to label this part because I have to. The next piece is labeled inference, right? My read, not fact. But ask yourself the question, when a prosecutor gives their most important witness only the thin type of immunity, okay, use immunity, limited use, keeps their leverage. Remember, the prosecutor keeps their leverage against Lance Twiggs and then fights tooth and nail to keep that witness from being questioned about the very deal in open court. What does that tell you? I can't read their minds. I won't pretend to. But here's what I can say. The state's own argument for hiding him from cross-examination is that the cross-examination might create inconsistencies. Their words. Go back to Judge Graf's ruling, competing credibility inferences. Remember earlier when I said, hold on to that? They are admitting on paper that the witness, that putting this witness under real questioning could shake up the story. And their solution was to make sure it never happens. That's not me saying it. That's the filing.
So watch what they actually did here, step by step, because once you see it as a sequence, it's hard to miss. If you see the first move, they gave their star witness very thin immunity, the limited kind, so that they can keep their leverage. But they also had the defense on the record stating that we want to ask this man one question. Did your deal with the prosecution and the state and the feds have any infliction on what is going on with your deal and why you took it? You can't ask that. Judge said no. 3, they made sure that he would never sit on the stand at all. So a tape is instead used as the witness. These moves in general hide the deal. They block any questioning. They lose the witness. And the thing that nobody's going to tell you is that this exact sequence is a witness you can't cross-examine, has a history. It's 400 years old. So let me take you back. Now, in 1603, there's a guy named Sir Walter Raleigh in England. He was an explorer. He was a war hero and one of the most famous men in the country at that time. He was accused of treason. They said that he was plotting against the king. Now, here's the problem with the case against him is that it rested pretty much entirely on one thing, a written statement from a man named Lord Cobham. Now, Cobham claimed that Raleigh was in on it, and Cobham wrote it down, signed it, and never had to walk into a courtroom. Raleigh knew that his life completely depended on getting that man in the courtroom and getting him to answer these questions or take it back or something, because Raleigh said Cobham had already taken it back. He had recanted it in private. So Raleigh stood up in that courtroom and he begged. He said, "Bring him here. Let Cobham come and accuse me to my face. And if he looks at me And he says it, looking in my face, I'll accept it. Call my accuser. The court refused to do so. They would not produce the witness. They read the paper out loud instead, and they used that paper to convict Sir Walter Raleigh of treason and sentence him to death. Years later, one of the judges who sat on that trial admitted that, quote, the justice of England had never been so degraded as in the trial of Sir Walter Raleigh. They knew, even then, they knew they'd done something wrong. They convicted a man and eventually executed him, and the word of an accuser was never allowed to be seen in questioning. In that case, the exact injustice in that case is the exact reason the men who wrote the American Constitution put 6 words into the 6th Amendment that should be ringing in your ears right now.
A tape immunity with no live cross-examination of the man whose words might send another man to his death. Is that allowed? Is that allowed? That is a constitutional question, and it has a 400-year-old answer. The right to confront your accuser is not some technically mumbo jumbo that lawyers cooked up. It is written into the 6th Amendment of the United States Constitution, and it's for one reason, and that reason has a name and a date. Sir Walter Raleigh.
Legal scholar John Wigmore, best known for his treatise Wigmore on Evidence, once described cross-examination as, quote, the greatest legal engine ever invented for the discovery of truth, unquote. The right to confront and cross-examine witnesses is ingrained in the 6th Amendment's Confrontation Clause, which provides that in all criminal cases, a defendant is entitled to be confronted with the witnesses against him. Why is this right so important, and where does it come from? The trial of Sir Walter Raleigh, a British explorer charged with treason in 1603, provides some answers. Walter Raleigh was charged with treason. The Crown alleged that Raleigh met with the Baron Cobham and conspired to advance Arabella Stuart to the throne. Cobham confessed and implicated Raleigh. Raleigh was tried to a jury, presided over by a panel of judges. At trial, the Crown introduced Cobham's sworn confession as evidence. Raleigh argued that Cobham's confession, obtained by torture and later retracted, was unreliable. Raleigh sought to call Cobham as a witness.
We don't know what what Lance Twiggs has gone through in order for them to get the evidence. We don't. What if he was tortured? What if he disappeared for quite some time, didn't he? So how do we not know that somebody had him locked up in somewhere, some dungeness storage facility somewhere, waterboarding him, telling him this is what you're going to have to say on recording, and then your ass is gone? How do we not know? We don't know that if that was the case or not.
So that he could either affirm or recant his accusations against Raleigh in person. The Crown also called a witness named Dyer, who testified that while in Lisbon, he heard another man say that Cobham and Raleigh had planned to kill the future king before he was crowned. Raleigh also objected to this testimony. The court denied Raleigh's request to call Cobham as a witness and permitted the introduction of Dyer's testimony.
Convicted of treason, sentenced to death, and on the written statement of a man who never once had to walk into that courtroom and say it to his face was the reason he got this death sentence. Raleigh begged. He said, bring my accuser here. Let him look at me and say it. And they refused. And then they executed him. So the men who wrote our Constitution knew that the story was that story. They knew it cold, inside and out. And they built the Confrontation Clause specifically so it could never, ever happen on American soil. And in 2004, the Supreme Court of the United States said exactly that out loud. Okay, they did. There was another case, Crawford versus Washington, writing for the court. And there's a whole episode I could probably do on that, right? So that being said, Crawford's full force, its full power attaches at trial. Whether it's binding is the exact same way at a preliminary hearing, where the only question is probable cause. That is a genuinely contested legal question. And this morning, Graff ruled that it does not bind the way that defense wanted. His reasoning is, although the preliminary hearing is a critical stage of the criminal response, it's not trial, and it does not involve a determination of guilt or innocence. So is that a real legal argument? Yes, it is. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you Graff invented something. He didn't. This is a real contested gray zone. But here's why it matters. And here's the part that bothers me, is that the chance to cross-examine this witness at this preliminary hearing on the record in this time window, that's what just got taken away.